family. And some people in his family were guillotined during the terror that followed the French Revolution. But his mother and father they were able to somehow escape. They came from northern France, not too far from Normandy, as a matter of fact.
The Tocqueville people?
Yeah. Yeah. Somehow they escaped the guillotine. He believed, even though he came from a feudal family, he believed strongly in democratic ideals, but was disturbed by the instability that France experienced during his lifetime. The French Revolution took place in 1789, and from 1789 to 1848, there were 6 regime changes. Have any of you taken French history? Well, I won't go over it.
French is I have a French class.
The French language. Yeah. Well, it's been a very unstable country, and he wanted to know what was wrong. The country was founded on these democratic ideals, but it couldn't get its act together. So he was trying to find some solution to their problems. And he noticed that in America, which also claimed to be a democracy, we know it wasn't, but it was about as close as you could get. They had had one form of government since the Constitution was written in 1781. So he decides to travel to this country and try to find out what's America's recipe for success. Try to take those principles that have been underlying American democracy and see if he could transfer them back to France. But you need money to make a trip like that because he wanted to stay here for about a year. So he comes up with an idea that he applies to the French government, which at the time was ruled by this guy Louis Philippe. Remember, that's one of 6 different monarchs and presidents that ruled France in the first 60 years of its existence after the Revolution. He says, he applies for funding from the government of Louis Philippe. Could he come and study the American penal system and see if the French could learn from it? And America invented penitentiaries. In other countries like France, if you were convicted of a crime, they just threw you in a dungeon and you were left to rot there. But in an American penitentiary, what did they do? The name says it all.
They tried to make you penitent.
You had to spend every day with preachers. The truth of the matter is, if given a chance, most people would rather be thrown into a dungeon. But that was the idea, that somehow they could change you and you'd be a decent person from now on. And he gets the grant. He comes over here. He lands in Newport, Rhode Island in 1831 and spends 9 months here. And he goes from city to city. Try to imagine the map of the United States. He takes a crescent route. Here's Rhode Island. And from Rhode Island, he goes to New York, then Baltimore, then Washington, D.C., where he meets with, who was the president in those days? 1781.
Whoa. Washington.
Go ahead.
Who are we talking about?
Who was the president of the United States in 1831?
Give me a second while I consult Google.
Is that Andrew
It was
Jackson?
Andrew Jackson during the period known as Jacksonian democracy. Especially wanted to come here. And so Rhode Island, New York, see, watch a crescent. And Baltimore, Washington, D.C., he travels through North Carolina, Georgia, comes to Alabama. I think he may have spent the night in Mobile. Then he goes to New Orleans, then goes up the Mississippi to St. Louis. He spends some time in Michigan and Wisconsin, and then goes east back to Rhode Island and heads back to France. And he just speaks to people, and he observes how Americans live, how they think and how they act. And he's writing this book that then becomes published, first published in 1835, called Democracy in America. And I think it's by far the best observation on American government and society that's ever been written. Oftentimes strangers can know more about you than people who are close to you or used to you. And he was a very observant and intelligent and sensitive stranger. So he figures out that the three principles that are responsible for American Express success in democracy are, number one, equality by far, and then individualism and materialism. When these principles are held in moderation, he says that's what produces democratic success. But the same principles, when taken to an extreme, lead to terrible failure. With equality, which he said was by far the most important democratic principle of all, he said that in moderation, equality means equality of opportunity. It's not fair to prejudge somebody if you don't know them. It's not fair to prejudge classes of people on the basis of some kind of prejudice or bias. That's, of course, what ruled the feudal systems. You were born into a class, and it was impossible. There was no social mobility. It was impossible to leave that class. So if you were born into a serf family, but you were a horrible farmer, it was too bad. That's what you were going to be. If you were born into the family of the king and queen and you were a horrible leader, too bad. That's what you were going to be. Equality of opportunity is based on the premise that whether a person is considered a success or failure results how they lead their lives and how they perform their occupations, not on some prejudging. Now, where does this come from, equality of opportunity? What do you think is the original source, Hacker, of equality of opportunity? If you had to look for one source of the belief in equality, where would you find it? I'm asking you because we've talked about this subject numerous times.
Is there more context to it?
It's a religious context. That's why I'm quoting on
Because
you.
you're all made in God's image.
And God loves all human beings equally. Yeah? So if you wanted the original source, that's where it would be. The Bible doesn't talk specifically about equality of opportunity, but that's where equality taken in moderation leads to. Taken to an excess, equality turns into literal equality, where you're born equal and you have to die equal. That literal equality means that everybody is literally the same. They have the same abilities, personalities. And if everybody isn't like a famous lawyer when they die, or a famous engineer, or a famous psychologist, then that means that there was some kind of prejudice in the society that kept them from doing that. What's wrong with that, equality taken to extreme, is that it belittles true prejudice. If every source of failure can't be, at least in part, your fault, and every source of failure is a societal fault, then when there's actual prejudice, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. After a while, people just say, well, that's just the way it is. We have no intention to try to do something about it.
This literal equality.
It means nobody can fail
So
on
it's-
their own.
That's what it's referred to as quality
Of
equality
result.
of result.
Quality
Yeah.
of result, exactly. That's exactly right. That's another way of saying it. No one can fail on their own, based on their own personal failures, so if they fail, it has to be someone else's fault. When you take equality to an extreme, what also happens is that not only are everyone equal, but every idea is equal. And that leads to the infamous relativism that rules our life. Relativism means, as you know, there can be no universal standards of right or wrong. Words mean whatever you want them to mean. This is very dangerous, especially this relativism, because it leaves people unmoored. They're valueless. They're directionless. I guess the proper metaphor is that you find yourself stuck in a lake, a huge, great lake, in a rowboat without any oars. You have no control over your life. You're just taken wherever the current takes you. We've also, Hacker, talked about this a lot. Most people just can't live this way. People need guidance that they can count on.
Right.
Are you like that? Or are you a very independent person?
I mean, you need guidance, I guess.
I suppose most people do.
To not be monomic, is that the...
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You can't, in a relativistic society, democracy that has taken equality to an extreme, you can't get that guidance from teachers because they really are no different than you are. You can't get it from preachers.
Equals.
I mean, you know, you can't get it from teachers. Teachers can give you information, but they really can't help you with values. What are they? They're the same as you. Your parents are just kind of like your friends in a relative society. They really don't. They deserve no more respect than you would have with a friend. So just as nobody wants to be left out on one of the Great Lakes without any, in a rowboat without any oars, no tiller, nothing, most people can't live this way. So if reliable, potentially reliable sources of guidance can't give it to you, where all people are equal and all ideas are equal, people will look for guidance from who? I mean, all this stuff, as you already know, all the courses, it all comes together in a circle, you know. So where do they get the guidance from? Yep.
Whatever God or someone they believe in?
Well, they can't believe in the God that you and I believe in because God is superior to human beings. And remember, we're talking about in a society where everyone is the same. Everyone and everything is the same. Well, it comes from these snake oil, political snake oil salesmen, and they're called
Demagogue.
yeah, who are very happy to give guidance. Of course, there's one proviso. In return for the guidance, you have to do whatever they tell you to do. Now, here's the kicker. Guess what? When these demagogues extort you and manipulate you and exploit you, this desire to get some kind of help in a society where no one is able to do it because the culture won't allow it to happen. These people are recognized as being wonderful. I mean, they're nonconformists. They won't fall into that trap of enemy. So because they don't fall into the trap of enemy, you take what they have to say very seriously. And they use your love and support, and exchange guidance for slavery. This is equality taken to an extreme. Now watch. When you're enslaved, in a totalitarian dictatorship, guess what? Everyone's equal. Isn't that amazing? There you are. So there's equality taken to an extreme.
I have a question.
Equality relating to freedom is now translated into equality leading to slavery. And what he says is, we'll get to your question in really 1 second, is that therefore the worst kind of dictatorships always come from democracies. That's where democracy goes wrong. Let's see. Who was a worse ruler? The dictator of the king of Germany, what was he called?
Kaiser.
The Kaiser or Hitler? Who was the worst leader, the king of Russia or Stalin? But I mean, so he predicts that if the people in democracy who are blessed with this principle of equality aren't careful, the worst kind of totalitarian dictatorships will result from it.